Welcome to Miss Scarlett. Subscribe and don't miss out on Patreon. Have fun! As Justin's weary fingers closed around the aged skeleton key, its ornate design whispered tales of countless visitors to this enigmatic hotel. The bellwether, once a beacon of grandeur, now stood as a relic in the heart of the old township. Its hallways, bathed in a subdued glow, reflected his current disposition. With each step, his stride elongated as the weight of 14 hours behind the wheel gradually released its grip.
413,
he whispered, almost ritualistically, his eyes trailing over the worn numerals marking each doorway. Half a year of relentless corporate battles, endless pitches, and a domineering superior had driven him here, to the brink of burnout. The prospect of restoration lay at the core of this abrupt escape, selecting the bellwether for its seclusion and humble charm. The only remarkable feature was the large antique wardrobe standing against the far wall, its dark wood gleaming despite the room's overall dated appearance.
"Well, at least it's clean,"
he murmured, dropping his duffel bag on the floor and collapsing onto the bed. He didn't even bother removing his shoes or turning down the covers before sleep claimed him, his body surrendering to the accumulated fatigue of months of overwork and internal disquiet he couldn't quite name. Justin's dreams were vivid and strange, colors swirling around him, fabrics brushing against his skin, and a persistent feeling of metamorphosis. In the dream, he stood before a mirror that showed not his reflection, but someone else's. Someone with softer features who wore a genuine smile, unlike the forced professional grin he'd perfected over the years. Morning light streamed through a gap in curtains that were definitely not the heavy burgundy drapes from the night before. Justin blinked awake, his mind foggy with sleep and confusion. The ceiling above him was adorned with delicate crown molding, and the walls. He sat bolt upright, heart hammering in his chest. The room had transformed completely. Gone was the generic hotel decor, replaced by elegant vintage furnishings. Floral wallpaper in soft cream and rose covered the walls. A beautiful vanity with an oval mirror stood where the simple desk had been, its surface arrayed with an assortment of makeup products, brushes, and perfume bottles. The antique wardrobe remained, but it now appeared polished and rejuvenated, its doors slightly ajar.
"What the hell?"
Justin scrambled off the bed, noticing that even the burgundy comforter had been replaced by a lush duvet in pale lavender. His feet sank into a plush area rug as he spun in a slow circle, taking in the transformed space. His eyes returned to the vanity, where something white caught his attention. A cream-colored envelope leaned against the mirror. His name, no, not his name, written in elegant script across the front.
"Brianna."
With trembling fingers, he picked up the envelope and broke the wax seal on the back. Inside was a single sheet of paper, the same elegant handwriting flowing across it. Dearest Brianna, the Bellflower Hotel has stood for nearly 2 centuries, witnessing countless souls in search of what they truly need. Our walls hold many secrets, but perhaps none so important as the one you've carried inside yourself. The clothes in the wardrobe are not merely fabric and thread. They are the vestments of authenticity, the uniform of your truth. They are yours now, as they have always been meant to be. The person you've been pretending to be can rest now. It's time for you to live. With loving welcome, the Bellflower. Justin dropped the letter as if it had burned him. His gaze shot to the partially open wardrobe, drawn to it despite his growing alarm. Crossing the room in 3 quick strides, he yanked open the doors. Inside hung an array of women's clothes, coral-wrap dresses, floral maxi skirts, flowing blouses in jewel tones, cardigans in soft pastels. On the floor of the wardrobe sat several pairs of shoes, beige ankle boots, practical flats, and a pair of low heels. Every item looked to be precisely his size, though cut for a female form.
"This is insane,"
he whispered, backing away from the wardrobe.
"Some kind of elaborate prank."
Yet even as he said it, his eyes lingered on a teal cowl-neck blouse, its fabric seeming to shimmer invitingly in the morning light. Justin spun around, looking for his duffel bag. It was gone. His phone. Where was his phone? He spotted it on the nightstand, lunged for it, and checked the signal. Nothing. No service in this remote location, just as the hotel website had warned. He paced the room, running fingers through his short blonde hair.
"Okay, this is weird, but there has to be an explanation. I'll just go downstairs and—"
He glanced down at himself, realizing he was still wearing yesterday's now rumpled clothes. The bathroom door stood ajar. Justin approached cautiously, as if expecting someone to jump out at him. Inside, the bathroom had been transformed as well. Clawfoot tub, vintage fixtures, and more feminine products arranged neatly on glass shelves. His reflection in the mirror stopped him cold. He looked the same. Blonde hair, sharp jawline, the beginnings of stubble, but somehow wrong, like a photograph slightly out of focus. For a disorienting moment, he could almost see the overlay of another face, softer, with the same eyes but framed differently. Justin splashed cold water on his face, gripping the edges of the sink.
"This is ridiculous," he muttered. "I need to get out of these clothes and clear my head."
He returned to the bedroom, eyes once again drawn to the wardrobe. The teal blouse seemed to call to him. Almost without conscious thought, his fingers reached out and touched the fabric. Soft, cool, inviting.
"This is crazy,"
he whispered, even as he lifted the blouse from its hanger.
"I'm just going to try it on to prove how ridiculous this all is."
Justin removed his wrinkled navy blazer and white button-down shirt, draping them over a nearby chair. He hesitated, then slipped the teal blouse over his head. The fabric settled against his skin with surprising rightness, the cowl neckline draping elegantly. Something inside him shifted. A tension he hadn't even been aware of carrying suddenly eased. The sensation was so profound that he gasped, staring down at himself in the teal blouse.
"What is happening to me?"
Yet despite the confusion, he couldn't deny the overwhelming sense of relief washing through him. It felt like setting down a crushing weight he'd been carrying for years without realizing it. Drawn as if by magnetic force, Justin moved back to the wardrobe and selected a flowing black skirt. He removed his khaki slacks and, after a moment's hesitation, stepped into the skirt, pulling it up to his waist. It fit perfectly, the fabric swishing pleasantly around his calves. The transformation in the mirror was startling. Even with his short hair and morning stubble, something about the clothing altered his entire bearing. His shoulders relaxed from their perpetually tense position. The person in the mirror looked somehow more authentic than the corporate drone who had checked into the hotel last night.
"Brianna,"
he whispered experimentally, the name from the letter falling from his lips. The name felt right in his mouth, familiar despite never having used it before. A memory surfaced. Being 5 years old, secretly trying on his mother's silk scarf, the fabric cool against his skin, and the profound disappointment when he was caught and gently but firmly told that boys don't do that. The memory was followed by dozens more, moments of suppression, of denial, of forcing himself into a mold that never quite fit. Brianna, sank onto the edge of the bed, overwhelmed by the cascade of realizations. The hotel hadn't played a trick. It had simply revealed what she had been hiding from herself for 32 years. With trembling hands, she returned to the vanity and sat down on the cushioned stool. The array of makeup products no longer seemed foreign, but familiar, as if she had used them countless times before. She picked up a tube of foundation, applied it with surprising skill, followed by concealer that masked her stubble. Each product seemed to know exactly how she needed to use it, the eyeshadow blending perfectly, the mascara lengthening her lashes without clumping. When she finished, the face in the mirror was unmistakably feminine. Her face, her true face, emerged from behind the mask she'd worn for decades. A knock at the door startled her.
"Housekeeping,"
called a cheerful voice.
"Everything to your satisfaction, miss?"
Brianna froze, panic rising in her throat. How could she face someone like this? But another part of her, the part that had just been liberated, pushed her forward. She opened the door a crack. An elderly woman in a hotel uniform smiled warmly at her, not a trace of surprise on her weathered face. "I see the Bellflower has worked its magic again," the woman said kindly. "You look beautiful, dear. The clothes suit you perfectly." Brianna's voice caught. "What is happening to me?" The housekeeper's smile deepened, creating a web of wrinkles around her kind eyes. "Nothing is happening to you that wasn't meant to be, dear. The Bellflower simply shows people what they need most. For some, it's a room filled with books that help them find answers. For others, it's a space with easels and paints to rediscover creativity. For you," she gestured at Brianna's attire. "Well, the hotel knows what we truly need, even when we've spent years denying it to ourselves." "But I never thought, I didn't know. Didn't you?" The housekeeper tilted her head. "Deep down in those quiet moments when you were truly honest with yourself?" Brianna fell silent, unable to deny the truth of the woman's words. All those years of discomfort in her own skin, the inexplicable envy when looking at women's clothing, the persistent feeling of playing a role rather than living authentically. It all suddenly made perfect sense. "The hotel restaurant serves breakfast until 10, the housekeeper continued, as if they were discussing nothing more consequential than the weather. "The chef makes wonderful blueberry pancakes. You should try them." She paused, then added gently, "Nobody here will judge you, Brianna. The Bellflower attracts those who understand transformation." With that, she continued down the hallway, her cart squeaking slightly on the aged floorboards. Brianna closed the door and leaned against it, her mind racing. The thought of going downstairs, of being seen by others, was terrifying, and yet she felt an unexpected pull to do exactly that. To be seen, truly seen, perhaps for the first time in her life. She returned to the wardrobe and selected a complete outfit. The teal blouse she already wore, the black skirt, a light cardigan in pale gray, and the beige ankle boots. Each item felt right, as if they'd been waiting for her all along. After brushing her short blonde hair into a softer style, Brianna took a deep breath and stepped into the corridor. The hallway was empty. the faded elegance of the hotel somehow more charming than shabby in the morning light. Her boots made a satisfying sound on the wooden stairs as she descended to the lobby. Each step brought equal measures of terror and exhilaration. The lobby was sparsely populated, an elderly couple reading newspapers in armchairs, a middle-aged woman typing on a laptop, and the receptionist behind the desk. No one looked up with shock or disgust. The receptionist, a young man with kind eyes, simply smiled and nodded. "Good morning, miss. Did you sleep well?" Yes, thank you." Her voice came out higher than usual, more feminine, without conscious effort. "Wonderful. The dining room is through those doors. Enjoy your breakfast." Brianna walked through the indicated doorway into a sunny room with about a dozen tables, half of them occupied. Again, no one paid her any particular attention beyond the cursory glance given to any newcomer entering a room. She selected a table by a window overlooking a garden and sat down, adjusting her skirt with a natural movement that surprised her. A server approached with a coffee pot and menu. "Good morning. Coffee?" "Please," Brianna replied, watching as the rich, dark liquid filled her cup. "I heard the blueberry pancakes are good." "The best in 3 counties," the server confirmed with a smile. "Coming right up." As she waited for her breakfast, Brianna gazed out at the garden, watching butterflies flit between late summer blooms. The profound sense of rightness continued to wash over her in waves, occasionally interrupted by moments of panic and doubt. Who was she now? What would this mean for her life, her career, her relationships? But beneath the practical concerns lay a bedrock of certainty. This was who she was meant to be. The woman in the teal blouse and black skirt, with the makeup that felt like a revelation rather than a disguise, was her true self. The pancakes arrived, steaming and fragrant, blueberries bursting through the golden batter. Brianna cut into them, savoring the first bite with a pleasure that seemed symbolic of the larger joy she was discovering. "Mind if I join you?" Brianna looked up to see a woman in her 40s standing beside the table, holding a coffee cup. She wore a simple dress in forest green, her graying hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. "Please," Brianna gestured to the empty chair across from her. "I'm Eleanor," the woman said, sitting down. "I recognized the look on your face, the Bellflower revelation look. I had it myself 3 years ago." "You did?" Brianna put down her fork, suddenly hungry for conversation more than pancakes. Eleanor nodded, stirring cream into her coffee. "I came here as Edward, a miserable corporate lawyer who couldn't understand why success felt so empty. The Bellflower showed me who I really was." She smiled, the contentment radiating from her. "Best thing that ever happened to me." "But how did you... what did you do after?" Brianna leaned forward. "How did you tell people? How did you rebuild your life?" "One step at a time," Eleanor replied simply. "It wasn't always easy. I lost some people I thought were friends. My parents took time to come around, but I gained authenticity, peace, true relationships." She reached across the table and briefly touched Brianna's hand. "The Bellflower doesn't just reveal your truth. It gives you the strength to live it." They talked through breakfast, Eleanor sharing her journey while Brianna absorbed every word. The conversation continued as they moved to the lobby, settling into comfortable armchairs as morning stretched toward afternoon. Eleanor answered questions about practical matters, legal name changes, hormone therapy options, building a wardrobe, finding supportive communities, with patience and understanding. "The most important thing to remember," Eleanor said, "is that you're not alone. There are so many of us who have walked this path, and we look out for each other." When Eleanor eventually excused herself for a previously planned hike, Brianna returned to her room, her mind whirling with new information and possibilities. The room seemed to welcome her back, the floral wallpaper and vintage furnishings no longer shocking, but comforting. She approached the wardrobe again, this time without fear, and began examining each item more carefully. Every piece seemed selected specifically for her, not just in size, but in style and color, things that complemented her coloring and body type. She tried on several outfits, marveling at how each one felt increasingly natural. In the drawer of the vanity, she found hair accessories and, to her surprise, a brochure for a salon in the nearest town that specialized in hair extensions. The thought of longer hair sent a thrill through her, another piece of the puzzle falling into place. As afternoon faded toward evening, Brianna sat at the vanity and wrote in the hotel stationery journal she'd discovered in another drawer. She poured out her feelings, her fears, her hopes. The act of writing made everything more concrete, more real. Another knock at the door came just as she finished writing. This time, it was the young man from reception, holding a tray. "Dinner service, miss. We noticed you didn't come down to the dining room, so I thought you might appreciate a meal." "That's very kind, thank you." Brianna accepted the tray, touched by the thoughtfulness. "Also, this arrived for you." He handed her an envelope with the hotel's logo. After he left, Brianna opened the envelope to find a handwritten note inviting her to join a small gathering in the hotel's garden room that evening. A weekly tradition for guests who are discovering new chapters in their lives. The invitation both intrigued and terrified her. Could she really face a room full of strangers like this? But wasn't that exactly what she would need to learn to do? Brianna ate the delicious meal, roasted chicken with herbs, seasonal vegetables, and a chocolate mousse that melted on her tongue, while contemplating the invitation. When she finished, she returned to the wardrobe and selected a royal blue dress with 3/4 sleeves and a modest neckline. The fabric hugged her body in a flattering way, suggesting curves where none had been before. From another drawer in the wardrobe, she discovered shapewear that created a more feminine silhouette, along with other undergarments she hadn't noticed earlier. Each new discovery felt like another gift from the mysterious hotel, another piece to help complete the puzzle of her true self. At 8 o'clock, Brianna made her way downstairs to the garden room, a beautiful glass-enclosed space filled with potted plants and comfortable seating arranged in a circle. About a dozen people were already gathered, a diverse group spanning various ages and backgrounds. Some she recognized from the dining room or lobby. Others were new faces. Eleanor waved her over, patting the empty seat beside her. "I'm so glad you came," she said warmly as Brianna sat down. "You look lovely in that blue." "Thank you," Brianna replied, smoothing her dress nervously. "I wasn't sure about coming, but the Bellflower has a way of encouraging us to be brave," finished a gray-haired man sitting across from them. "I'm Richard. I discovered my passion for painting here 3 years ago, after a lifetime of believing I had no artistic talent." One by one, the others introduced themselves, each sharing the gift the Bellflower had revealed to them. There was Maria, who had found her calling as a writer, Thomas, who had discovered his talent for counseling others, and several others like Brianna and Eleanor, who had discovered their true gender identities. The Bellflower brings us what we need, not always what we thought we wanted, said Louisa, an elegant woman in her 70s who identified herself as the hotel's owner. My great-grandmother built this place in 1849, and from the beginning it had unusual properties. We don't advertise them, of course. The people who need to find us do. The evening unfolded into a warm, supportive conversation. People shared their journeys, their struggles, their triumphs. Brianna listened intently, occasionally gathering the courage to ask questions or share fragments of her own emerging story. What happens when we leave here? She asked during a lull in the conversation. Does the magic stay with us? Louisa's smile was gentle but knowing. The Bellflower doesn't create magic, dear. It simply reveals what was already within you. That truth doesn't vanish when you drive away from our parking lot, but maintaining it in the outside world, that requires courage. And support, added Eleanor, which is why we have a network of Bellflower guests who stay connected. No one has to face their new truth alone. By the time the gathering ended, Brianna felt a new sense of purpose forming. The path ahead wouldn't be easy. She harbored no illusions about that. But it was her path, her truth, and for the first time in her life, she felt equipped to walk it. Back in her room, she opened the laptop she'd brought on the trip, discovering that the hotel did offer Wi-Fi despite its remote location. She began researching, making lists, planning. She found therapists specializing in gender identity, support groups in her home city, information about legal name changes, and medical resources. Morning came with renewed determination. Brianna dressed in a burgundy wrap dress and black flats, applied her makeup with growing confidence, and went downstairs for breakfast. She spotted Eleanor at a table and joined her. I've been thinking, Brianna said after they'd exchanged greetings. I can't stay here forever, hiding from reality. I need to take what the Bellflower has shown me and build a life around it. Eleanor nodded. That's the real challenge and the real reward. What's your plan? I've got 3 more days of my vacation left. I'm going to use that time to prepare, practice being out in public, maybe visit that salon in town for hair extensions, get some advice about building a wardrobe that will work in my everyday life. Brianna took a deep breath. And then I'm going to go home and start living authentically. It won't always be easy, Eleanor cautioned. I know, but it can't be harder than living a lie has been. Brianna's voice was steady, her resolve strengthening with each word. I have savings. If my company can't accept me, I'll find somewhere that will. If friends abandon me, they weren't really friends. My parents... Her voice faltered slightly. That might be the hardest part, but I have to believe that love will win out eventually. Eleanor reached across the table and squeezed her hand. That's the spirit. And remember, you have the Bellflower Network now. We look out for our own. The next 3 days passed in a blur of activity and preparation. Brianna visited the salon in town, where the stylist, apparently familiar with Bellflower guests, skillfully attached extensions that transformed her short blonde hair into shoulder-length waves. The woman in the mirror after the appointment looked even more right, even more herself. She practiced being out in public, shopping in the town's small boutiques, having lunch at local cafes. There were occasional curious glances, but no hostility. Whether that was luck or the protective aura of the Bellflower extending to the surrounding area, she couldn't say. In the evenings, she joined other guests in the garden room, absorbing their wisdom and support, sharing her own growing confidence. Louisa provided practical advice about navigating certain challenges, while Eleanor helped her refine her coming-out approach for different people in her life. On her final night at the Bellflower, Brianna stood at the window of room 413, gazing out at the star-filled sky. The room had been her cocoon, the place of her metamorphosis. Leaving it felt momentous. A soft knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. She opened it to find Louisa standing there, holding a small wooden box. "A parting gift," the older woman said, extending the box. "From the Bellflower, for one of its daughters." Brianna accepted the box with trembling hands and opened it. Inside lay a beautiful silver pendant on a delicate chain. A bellflower blossom rendered in exquisite detail. "It's beautiful," she whispered, lifting it from the velvet lining. "It marks you as part of our family now," Louisa explained, taking the necklace and moving behind Brianna to fasten it around her neck. "If you ever need help, find one of us wearing this symbol. We'll be there for you." The pendant settled against Brianna's skin, cool at first, but quickly warming. "Thank you for everything," she said, turning to embrace the older woman. "I don't know how to repay what this place has given me." "Live your truth. Help others find theirs when you can. That's repayment enough." Louisa stepped back, her eyes twinkling. "And perhaps visit us again someday, to share your journey." The following morning, Brianna checked out of the Bellflower Hotel. Her old duffel bag had mysteriously reappeared, now filled with carefully selected items from the wardrobe, practical pieces that would help her begin her new life. The rest of her new clothing had been packed into 2 suitcases that Louisa insisted were part of the Bellflower experience. Eleanor and several other guests gathered to see her off, exchanging contact information and words of encouragement. As Brianna loaded her luggage into her car, she felt not sadness but anticipation, the excitement of beginning an authentic life. The drive home gave her time to reflect and strengthen her resolve. She used the hands-free feature of her phone to make several important calls, scheduling an appointment with a therapist specializing in gender identity, arranging for a week off from work to handle the initial transition, and most nervously, calling her closest friend to arrange a meeting where she would reveal her truth. Her apartment felt strange when she finally unlocked the door, a space that belonged to someone she no longer was. She moved through the rooms, seeing them with new eyes, already planning changes that would make the space reflect her true self. That evening, she sat at her kitchen table and wrote emails to her boss and close colleagues, explaining her situation and her intention to return to work as Brianna. The words flowed more easily than she expected, the certainty of her path giving strength to her voice. The responses began coming in that same night, some supportive, some confused, but willing to learn, 1 or 2 uncomfortably silent. Her boss's reply was cautiously positive, suggesting a meeting before her return to discuss practical matters. The visit with her closest friend the next day went better than she'd dared hope. Initial shock gave way to questions, then understanding, then a fierce hug and promises of support. Her parents were harder. The phone call was difficult, full of confusion and concern, but they didn't reject her outright, and they agreed to visit in a few weeks to talk in person. It was a start. As days turned into weeks and weeks into months, Brianna built her new life piece by piece. There were difficult moments, awkward questions, occasional hostility, bureaucratic hurdles in changing official documents. But there were beautiful moments too. The first time a stranger called her Miss without prompting, finding community in support groups, discovering small joys in expressing herself authentically. Her hand often went to the silver bellflower pendant when challenges arose, drawing strength from what it represented. Twice, she encountered others wearing the same symbol, once a barista who gave her an encouraging smile during a difficult day, and once a woman at a legal aid office who helped expedite her name change paperwork. 6 months after her stay at the Bellflower Hotel, Brianna drove back along the winding road that led to its remote location. She parked in the same spot she had that fateful night, now wearing a forest green dress and comfortable heels, her blonde hair styled in soft waves around her shoulders. Louisa greeted her in the lobby as if she'd been expecting her, which perhaps she had. "Room 413 is ready for you," she said with a warm smile. "Though I think you'll find it looks quite different now." The room, when Brianna entered it, was indeed transformed again. Gone were the vintage vanity and floral wallpaper, replaced by soothing blue walls, a comfortable writing desk, and bookshelves filled with volumes on psychology, gender studies, and personal growth. On the desk sat a leather-bound journal and a pen. The first page contained a single line in now familiar, elegant script. "The Bellflower reveals what you need most. Once, you needed to discover your truth. Now you need to share it." Brianna smiled, running her fingers over the words. She settled at the desk, opened to a fresh page, and began to write her story, not just for herself, but for others who might one day find themselves in a mysterious hotel room that knows them better than they know themselves. Outside her window, bellflowers swayed in the breeze, their purple blossoms catching the golden afternoon sun, a reminder that transformation, while sometimes unexpected and often challenging, can lead to the most beautiful kind of blooming.
Thanks for watching, my girlies! Be sure to check out Patreon for more!